welcome to That Moto Show with Dirt Bike TV's Jay Clark and producer Donnie Bales.
All right, number 14. That's hard to believe, right, Donnie?
That's correct.
Number 14, we say this every time. Of course, I think of Wyndham. What about you?
No, Wyndham, absolutely.
Because he kinda
you
owns
see
the
up there on the wall? That's a Wyndham toy up there.
Yeah, the Geico one.
Yeah, the Geico one. I just never, it was for Riley, and then I took it back from him.
He kind of owns that 14. Seeley had it for a little while there.
Seeley, yeah.
Ferrandis
Brandis has it
French
now.
guy now, yeah. So maybe it's lost a little bit of its luster.
Brandis is still a champion.
No, he's great. He's cool. But it's just something about Wyndham was just this really, he's the people's champion guy.
Right. Those transfers or whatever they used to be.
Transfers.
Do you remember those
Are we
things?
still allowed to say that word?
No, that's transition.
Okay, so transfer. And those were the coolest thing.
Those are cool.
Those were cool.
Yeah,
Funny Wyndham story is he actually helped teach me how to climb hills.
Oh, he did.
It was the funniest thing. This is when he's first riding for Yamaha in YZ125 out at Railroad Canyon. Him and Allie, his mechanic,
Allie, long-term man friend mechanic.
Okay, so they were riding out the railroad. And there wasn't very many guys like myself that didn't have real jobs that could go ride during the middle of the week, right? So I'm out there riding. It's in the winter, and I think I was by myself, and they were out there, and I think it was just like us. He's doing these gnarly hill climbs on a 125, like gnarly.
Yamaha days.
Yeah, and I'm like on a 250, like a YZ 250 maybe. And so this is like mid to late 90s, right? Would have been.
Yep.
I don't know when he rode a 125. Does anybody know?
It might have been Kawasaki.
It was mid 90s. He was on because by 99, I think he was already on a big bike.
It was a steel frame. Blue bike. Anyway, he would do these hill climbs, and he was watching me, and he got me over. And hey, you put your foot. So that's why I put my foot out front. If you put your foot out, that'll weight that front end, keeps that front wheel from popping up, and those big sand.
Dude,
hill
I'm
climbs.
terrible at hill climbs. How come you've never told me this?
It's really cool. He would just move both of his feet up there, and then he'd bring him back. And as you bring him back, then it would hook up a little bit more. It was a really good lesson, and I still do it today. So Spencer's not here.
Oh.
This is Scott Hoffman, longtime friend of Donnie. Dirt bike test fame, and behind you is this dirt bike test bike we shot today. We were out there and we tested this bike today. It's a 350 XCF that looks nothing like a KTM, but has the gas front end and got some really cool looking graphics, I think, from Decal Works. So really cool bike. So we'll have a test on that coming out in dirt bike test soon.
That's your MO, changing everything to a gas bike.
Well, just to look, the orange, I'm not a huge fan.
How dare you?
Right. But it's just not. It's just very orange.
Yeah. I have a couple of orange things around.
Right.
So, Scott and I have been riding together for 20 plus years, like pretty regular. And Scott and I, actually, he's the one who got me into Supermoto, right? So one day he calls me up and he says,
"Dang it,
I'm going to try Supermoto. Do you want to go try it?" And I've actually always been good about like, sure, I'll give it a try. And I went to Pikes Peak because of him and all this stuff. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have done any of that.
All that stuff that takes us further apart from each other.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I've also seen Donnie need that Wyndham technique for going uphill, because I've seen Donnie literally flip his bike up over his head, over behind him, and till this day I still don't know how that happened. But
the bike literally did a 360 over my head and landed behind me.
Luckily it didn't
touch me.
Yeah.
No, it's just all of a sudden Donnie's like this and his bike, let's go behind him.
All right, so Scott's going to help. He's going to read some questions. He's like, I have to go get my glasses if I read questions. I'm like, hey, go get your glasses. We're going to read some questions.
Why don't you keep your glasses with you all the time?
I don't know.
All right.
But I did come bearing gifts. Look what I brought.
Oh, thank you.
So this is a 2023-24 Reed air filter cage for the new generation bike, and this is going to go on Donnie's EXC, and there's no screen. And all you have to do is buy a 2-stroke air filter cage for a 23-24, and it's problem solved. So I brought that for Donnie.
Yeah, so much better than cutting the screens out, because those little screen pieces go everywhere.
Well, I'd like to tell you this was like $100, but it was like $12.
Yeah.
At Langston's. So I got this for you. So that's our next thing.
I'd like to tell you how much each production costs on the show.
Okay, Jay,
So as long as I bring a $12 gift every time, I'm good.
A question that some people ask, when you do take the screen out, are you supposed to run the special air filter that doesn't have is flame resistant or whatnot?
Yeah, there's people that do that. We don't. We've never burned a bike down to the ground. And I will say a caveat here: if you do burn your bike down, you can blame Donnie, but not myself. So
I've only seen it happen one time. I think it was Andy Bell on freestyle, and somehow his bike stalled out, backfired.
Was this a carbureted bike?
Yes, carbureted bike. And it caught his air filter on fire. And that was the only one time I've ever seen it.
So talk about, because this bike, it's going to another state and it's going to be dirt only, right? So
Yes.
this isn't going to be on the street. So what else has to go with this to kind of,
Well, I've said this before to everybody. If you get an EXC, don't do any mods, period. Zero, unless you have an ECU plan. If you're going to have, if you have a Vortex from like Twisted, whatever you're going to do, but don't do any mods. Don't pull out the reed cage. Don't change the muffler. Don't do anything unless you get an ECU, because otherwise it's just going to run terrible, pop and fart and sound terrible. Don't do it. So just have an ECU plan, which we already showed that a couple weeks ago. We got the ECU for this one. Oh, and our podcast is coming out on Saturdays. I was supposed to remember to plug that. So it's coming out on Saturdays, every other Saturday. We might have to take a few week break during the summer for all of our travel plans to line up. But other than that, we'll be somewhat on track with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I like them on Saturdays. I think it's going to be well received there.
Okay. Oh, so we might as well talk about the Nationals then, real quick. I know we're not getting to our questions yet, but the Nationals were awesome.
Didn't we just get yelled at for babbling?
I know, but that's one of the advantages of being somewhat current is we can talk about the Nationals. The first 3 rounds are over. For a minute there at Hangtown, it looked like Chase Sexton was going to be just unbelievable.
Yeah.
He had a legend ride, second moto. We all saw that. And then it comes to Colorado, and now we're back to wherever we're at, right?
Yeah, I'm actually going to defend Chase because I think if you watched everybody ride at Colorado, everybody looked muted. Every rider looked muted except for Chance Hymas. He's the only guy that I think really stood out that this weekend. But it's the altitude or whatever else. It's like, and that track, it doesn't make for a lot of good passing.
We know that was the chance he had to
Good point.
Yeah, he needed to do well there.
I'm still on the Sexton wagon. So I'm
knocking on wood that we can get some battling. I like Jet, but I don't want to see anybody run away and win it.
No, I like Jet too. I like you. I don't.
And I do like that Hayden's winning. I think it's cool. The whole. I'm all a fan of that whole deal. So it's cool.
Yeah,
that was a good point though, because even Deegan was making mistakes in the front.
Oh yeah,
leading up. I mean, everybody was making a little mistakes, and Sexton just made a mistake that tossed his wheels out from underneath.
Yeah, but I give him to that pass he was going for was pretty gnarly, man.
He could have just chilled for a little bit, I think, and had him in a half a lap. Who knows?
Yeah,
whatever.
It was.
And we have our friend Jason Wood watching. He used to kind of be somebody.
Jason, what years did you ride?
Race.
For 90 as a pro.
Yeah.
I quit in 2099.
So did you make night programs?
Mm-hmm.
You made night programs? Did you make any mains?
Didn't make mains. I think I got like a 6th in LCQ.
Yeah, but listen, making a night program.
What about nationals? Did you ever race like Glen Helen?
No, I didn't do nationals because
they were harder.
Yeah, they were hard.
He didn't want to go to Glen Helen.
Well, I had all Supercross stuff.
Hey, so do me a favor. Send Donnie a couple photos. Like, even if you have to go take them off.
No, he has them on his wall at his house still. I think he tries to impress his wife every week. He wants to walk by a photo on the wall and show what he used to do.
Yeah, Donnie can show.
I did test riding for MX Racer.
Yeah.
And Dad got it covered.
Nice. Do you have the cover too? Send me the cover.
All right, so send that Donnie. And people know who you are. He's over here visiting, and you're here for play day, swim day, right?
Yeah, our kids have been friends for like 10 years.
That's so cute.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
I actually have friends, dude.
All right.
Yeah. I was just going to say, go ahead.
Yeah. Sponsored him. So it's a long circle. We have good friends it's crazy, like over 30 years.
Yeah.
Like over 30 years. So
one thing I was going to say that people forget that somebody making a night show to Supercross, they look at him and they go, look at that guy. You go to Glen Helen on a given practice day, those night show guys blow by you and just haul butt.
Yeah.
They don't give the talent that they actually have.
No, I agree.
On TV, seen compared to the top factory riders. But
literally the top 80 best riders in the world.
Are right on the track at one given
time. There you go,
and
Jason.
they're still going. I mean, on a given day, they're going to beat almost everybody.
I wasn't saying that in a negative. I was like, man, if you make the night program, you're gnarly.
Yeah,
you're gnarly.
It's rad.
Yeah.
All right, so Spencer's probably dying right now that we haven't got to questions. So, all right, so
if Spencer was here, he could say what he wants.
For whatever it's worth, Spencer's listening, and what he listens because he supplies one of his jobs, even when he's away, is to get the photos for Donnie. So if you're listening to the podcast, you obviously don't get to see the photos, but if you're watching, we have photos to pop up, and that helps, and photos and a few little short videos, so it'll help help explain things a little bit better. So, and remember just to email us any questions, that kind of stuff. And let's get started. Scott, you got our first. The first one's not even a question; it's more of a comment.
It confused me for a little bit.
Yeah, it's just a comment.
Is it a comment a comment on the video, correct?
Yep. It's on our. This is a comment on our 125 tips and hacks video. This is an awesome comment. Read that.
Okay.
Hey, get closer to the mic.
F period barbs. I'm not saying F barbs. It is F period.
But
barbs.
you just did.
I get it. I love that video. It's precise, brief, and straight to the point. The clips and the images to support every single tip make it very clear what you are referring to and how to do it. I love it. I subscribe to the channel. Not even halfway through.
Oh, that's nice, huh? All right, so just remember, we need to be, what do you say, concise and that's what we're not
precise,
being.
Brief, and straight to the point.
Brief and straight to the point. That's what we're not being today. So we need to, for these questions, that's going to be our goal.
Okay.
Is what this guy's setting forth. You go, Donnie, with the first one. Fire away.
Mike M. I have a 23 CRF 250 RX with 25 hours on it. Trying to ride more hard enduro, but I'm seeing a lot of coolant come through the overflow tube. It only happens when I'm not moving or moving very slowly, usually when I'm trying to find lines through rocks. Any idea what could be causing this? The bike is bone stock.
Okay, so the sad reality here is he just has the wrong bike. And I let him know the other day, hey, this is tough. And I gave him a few tips of advice to help, but there's not a whole lot you can do.
Problem is, it's such an awesome bike.
Yeah, it's a great bike. It's not intended for hard enduro. And if you look at hard enduro or any type of tough trail riding, they're not on that bike. And if you're going to be on a 4-stroke, they're typically on a 350 and bigger so they can clear things quicker. They're not stuck. That 250F, it's hard to even get the front wheel to pop up in a tight trail situation. The things just get hot. The mapping's lean, so you can go with you can get a richer map for that thing. You could also try a higher temp cap, and then simply a 2-stroke would solve his problem if he was on a 2-stroke. But that's the bike he has. So I told him when he clears a section, when he gets done with a section, to try to ride in in an area that's open to help cool the bike down, or just to stop and wait a while before he continues on to the next section.
What about putting a fan on that bike?
It's difficult because it doesn't want to power a lot. There's not a specific fan for it. We did it on our RX, but we have a lot of tools at our disposal. ICW welded up, I think we showed it, they welded up brackets for us on that Tusk fan. So it's a lot of work to do. So I don't know that most people are going to.
Plus, what would that stator be like with that fan, right?
Well, you have to set the temperature kind of high because you don't want
above
it on
185.
Yeah, probably 190.
190,
so that it's not on too much.
Right.
So anyway,
what about a catch can?
Catch can would help, but if he gets a high temp cap, I don't think he'll be puking that much. I really don't.
But the bike's still going to be overheating.
Yeah, it's still going to be worn and hot. And those bikes run hot. So typically, what I tell guys in those situations, I would just simply try not to ride too tough of enduro with an RX 250, RX 450. We're doing fine with that thing in tougher stuff. So
yeah.
All right, Scott's got our next question.
First of all, this is number one fan, AG Squires.
AG, yes, he's asked a lot of questions. I
like this guy,
and he has good questions. So then I do include him.
Yeah, no, he's always got good questions.
Yeah. So
okay.
Just so you posted about this CRF 250. Imagine that's your 2-strokes. I've been struggling getting that snappy return on my throttle on my 2006 CRF 450R. Would my carb have the same spring that I can replace to get the same effect? I've changed the throttle cables, went to an ODI ball bearing throttle tube, and it's all clean, etc. It got better, but from before those changes. But it's not like what the reaction of the throttle in your video.
Okay, stop right there. So we're good. So basically, and Scott, you got to get closer to the mic. Okay, so what that means is he's wanting that those 2-strokes when you have brand new cable, brand new spring, you snap and they snap back. It's really cool sounding and feeling. But on the 4-stroke with brand new cables, all that, it doesn't do that because it has two cables, a return one. And there's a big linkage at the either carburetor on his bike, a carburetor or a throttle body. There's a big linkage there. You're losing a lot of quickness there. So there's just really nothing you can do. But when you ride the 4-stroke, you never feel like it's not coming back quick enough. So under load and when there's vacuum and everything going on in the engine, that thing will snap back. You don't have to worry about it being slow coming back. It's fine. So don't stress that your 4-stroke throttle feels a little bit stiffer than your 2-stroke one. Simple.
You go. Yep, there you go.
All right, Donnie, you're
Ricky
next.
F. Do you have a contact to bore out some Yamaha 4-stroke clamps from 54 to 56 to work on my YZ250?
Okay, so Alan Brown in Riverside, California, he's the one that's done a few for us. He just did another one. He does a great job. So, and we have some of the clips of his videos doing our CR clamps, and then He does a really good job of it. He understands it. So if you just give him you can measure your forks, send him your clamps, and he'll bore them out for you.
Man, I walked in the other day. How many bikes does he have in that shop?
Oh yeah, a bunch. I forgot you went by there. Thank you for doing that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was like, there's so many bikes.
Now we're even.
Well, I don't know about that yet. We'll talk about that later.
All right. So Alan Brown, and you can find him on Instagram or just email us. I'll get you his email or a contact. All right, Scott, what do you got?
Okay, Decent 54. Hi, I have a 2003 YZ125 with an idle issue. I'll start without the choke and idle until it's warm. Then I'll idle super slow or not at all. But it runs fine other than that. A slight gurgle, bog in the low end. Carb is stock jetting 410 main, 40 pilot with the air screw at 2 turns out. And the needle at the third position from the top. Exhaust is all stock with a brand new V-Force 3 reed cage and air filter. Thanks.
You're doing good, Scott. Okay, so I get these kind of questions a lot on two-strokes, guys, idle issues, things like that. Typically, the carburetor needs to be cleaned. That's the first thing. So you got to go through the carburetor, clean it, and then we use the Pro Circuit jetting page. You just go to their website, hit support, and then you can put in your year. And I would go with that jetting first. And you have to check. You might not have the correct needle on your bike. You might not have the correct slide. Things have changed, especially on an over 20-year-old bike. There's lots of factors. So that's the first thing I do is check that jetting. Then you got your reeds, which one of the guys, I'm not sure if it was this one of the guys in the last week or two, his reeds were cracked. After investigating for a while, found out reeds. So the reeds were kind of destroyed. So that was an issue. And so reeds, silencer being totally clogged up. Then after that, if you got a 20-year-old bike and you don't know the history of that top end, I'm going to say top end is probably next. So you want to check the top end, put a new piston and rings in, check the cylinder that it's all good, and that'll usually solve most problems. If you're having a problem idle down there, then it's usually your air screw. You could back that air screw out to like 3.5 turns, and if that makes it better, then you want to go with a leaner pilot jet and back that air screw back into the 1.5 to 2 range. Okay.
How often can a person have compression problems, bad piston rings or whatever, and think it's a carburetor issue?
It's quite often, and Brad helps me a lot with tech stuff, and we go over some of these. We're talking, and he goes, "How much time's on the piston?" And even if the compression's still somewhat in the range, it's still, when it gets hot under load, the thing is not sealing, and so it's really running too low to even keep the idle circuit.
So it's something. Anytime somebody thinks about you got to look at what's changed, right? How many hours are on the bike?
Yeah, and a lot of guys are buying these. They got you don't realize 15 to 20-year-old two-strokes, and they don't know the history of how old the piston is. Just assume it needs to be done.
Okay,
just assume.
But Jay, isn't it kind of difficult to get a 125 to idle?
That's a whole nother thing. Is that, and they don't really run the best when idling. So that's another comment. And another comment I get too is guys like to idle their bikes for 2 minutes or 3 minutes. It's like, no, let that thing idle for 20 seconds, 30 seconds, rev it up a little bit, and then cruise around at pit speeds to warm it up. But don't let it sit there and just idle for a while.
Yeah.
We'll talk about another idle funny story next time.
I'm going to get that.
Let's wait till we get some
We got to
photos.
wait for that.
That one's funny. But for a two-stroke to run properly, it should just barely just die after about 4 or 5 seconds, ding, 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 and then die. That's when it runs the best. But if guys aren't as experienced and they're trail riding it, they want it to idle. Yeah. And I get it. Okay, so, and our 300s will idle.
We have my KX 500 idling, but that's because of the Recluse.
Right.
Yeah. So, all right. Rob S., I thought you'd get a kick out of this. Brand new 2024 Gas MC 125. You can use these picks to warn everyone, I guess.
Yeah, and the picks are in there. Spencer has those set up for us, so you can be picks right here, right now.
I don't know why you'd need to, but you're the reason I'm taking apart a brand new bike. Thank you for all that you do and the non-moto dads to help out moto kids. So I don't know what the question is.
Oh no, so anyway, he's just letting us know that you'll see from these photos right here that they took apart the swing arm bearings and linkage, all completely dry.
Oh,
brand new bike. Wow. Brand new bike. So just reaffirming what we kind of tell everybody all the time: when you buy these brand new bikes, they don't come.
And it's every brand. It's not one brand.
Right, yeah. Right. It's not just KTM. And some of the brands are a little bit more, but for the most part, they all need it. You need to pack it. And then they go, well, how often should I do it again? And that depends on how often you're pressure washing your bike. When you wash it, you blow it off really well every time, like our video show. Those are factors to how well it's going to last. But I tell most guys once a year, they're going to be able to.
I believe everything is built on a Friday now.
Yes, for sure.
But Jay, why do you think? Because my KX450 2024 had the thinnest, lightest grease in all those bearings. I took my bike apart after like 2 hours, and it was like the lightest, thinnest
Right.
grease. It was almost like leaking out.
Right.
It was so thin.
Right. They're just trying to save cost.
Vegetable oil.
Maybe.
And I think it's cost and time. And that's another factor is I get guys ask me about the air compressor, about blowing the bike off. They said, what do you do if you don't have one? I said,
Go get one.
Get a job.
Get one.
Go save up. Whatever you got to do to get a compressor. You need a compressor to blow your bike off after you wash it to do it right. So you're blowing it out of all those critical areas. And the electronics nowadays, you really should be pulling your seat off every time, blowing it off, and doing all that.
I have to admit, before really hanging out with you more and more, I didn't blow it off as much. And now every time I wash it, I blow it like a lot. I blow it with my big blower, and then I blow it with everything off.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah, the leaf blowers.
I know my leaf blower.
Work great at initial right after you wash your bike.
Right.
I actually like that. You get all the big stuff off,
Yeah.
and then you go to the tight spots.
Very cool. All right, Scott. What do we
Okay, Jill G. Hi, Jay. How often do you see broken plastic oil pump gears? And if so, have you changed yours to metal? Is this something to be concerned about? I have 150 hours on my Beta 4T, and she's running like a champ. Thanks.
Okay, so first of all, we don't see this problem very much at all. It was a very isolated problem on the KTMs, like 16 to 20 range, 16 to 19 was this range where they had a problem, and we upgraded to the newer gear, been no problems. Yes, most of them are switching to aluminum, but I don't think, and especially on these betas, if you haven't heard of a specific problem, I wouldn't even be concerned about it. So if you Google it, if you talk to other beta guys and they tell you there's a problem, I would be concerned, but otherwise I wouldn't even worry about it. It's totally fine. These things are made to run with that. I think the KTM thing was a bit of a freak deal, and unfortunately, it cost a few guys some motors. We were lucky enough that it didn't.
Is it hard to get information on betas because there's not that many out there compared to some of the other brands?
Yeah. But I think within that community, I think there's plenty of people that would get him information and tell them if there's a problem. So I haven't heard of anything, and the fact that he's got 150 hours tells me things are pretty good.
My understanding as well about Beta is that their dealer network, although small, is really good. If you call them, they really try hard to get you information because those dealers are spread out more.
Yeah.
I've kind of heard that Beta's really good. If she wants to call, that they would give that information as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you're good.
All right. I know the answer to this, but I'm going to wait for you to hear it. But I'm going to start laughing early.
Okay.
Because I already know what the exact wording of this answer is. Joey L. Hi, Jay. I'd like to put modern forks on my 1986 CR 125. What would be a good year with the least problems? I don't mind spending up to $1,000 or so. I guess I'm asking what year fork are the best and easiest to service to still get parts for. I'd like them to be spring forks and not air. Thanks.
Yeah. So you already know what I told him, and
I know. I already know.
we call I'm a bit of a dream crusher.
The dream crusher. That's all I could think of.
The dream crusher. And there's certain things that I kind of want to tell, but I wrote him really nicely, and I let him know, hey, basically what I told him is, I think you're better off saving that money because first of all, the $1,000 would only get you close to halfway there because you need to find forks, get clamps made. You have to get clamps made.
Well, wait, let's talk about 1 second. Let's talk about the forks that we did on my bike and what happened.
Right.
I bought what I thought was a good pair of forks,
right,
and then had to get all new, brand new internals for
it.
Right.
We've gone through this, so you can find a set of forks you think are good for $300 to $600, and then internally they're no good when you get your suspension guy to tear them into them. So you got to be really careful. So in this case, the new forks wouldn't make that bike substantially better. So my opinion is on these older bikes, enjoy them for what they are. Enjoy it for a 1986. Don't try to think and add a bunch of heavier forks on there and think it's going to make it way better. I just wouldn't even bother. So that's my opinion on these older bikes when you're doing them. And on my CRs, for the most part, I tried to use as much original stuff back then.
And how hard was it for you to get?
It was hard. We went through 10 sets of suspension to make the 5.
10 sets for 5.
Right. It was a 50-50 deal.
And even though you made the 5, you still had how many new components you needed to put in there?
Oh, a bunch. And all of them had to get hard anodized.
Right.
Because they were still worn out inside. So it's just a real common deal. One of them, we went to a 2000 fork and we're able to do that. And then with his problem, then if you did that, you'd be messing with front brake and front wheel, custom spacers, all kinds of issues you don't even think about that would be added up. So not worth dealing with, in my opinion. unless there was some type of serious race situation where you're going to be racing this, which I don't think so. And he seemed to appreciate my honesty when I said, hey, just save that money, do something else with it, buy gas and tires and do all that and enjoy yourself.
Yeah,
so,
I knew the answer.
All right. All right, Scott, what do you got?
Okay, Shelby writes in, do you check your chain tension with the bike on the stand or on the ground? And is it okay to use the 2.5 finger check method? Love the show and all you and your team do for the sport.
Okay, I don't have, Donnie, do you have one of those Works Connection things? Or I'll have Spencer just throw a photo.
Yeah, throw a photo.
I'll make sure Spencer gets us a photo of the Works Connection chain blocks. And then you can make your own just with a bolt. You can look at your manual, and your manual will give you the distance that it needs to be. But just using 3 fingers or 2.5 fingers for most bikes isn't going to be accurate. All the bikes are different. They range. The newer generation KTMs have a bigger range than more slack than normal. So we like to check it right behind the end of the chain block, and that's where most of them will check it. And what chain slack is supposed to do is so when the shock's off the bike, you can pick up the rear wheel with the proper slack, and then the chain won't get too tight anywhere throughout the travel. And so it's important to keep that at a set distance. And so what I like to do is get a bolt or a gauge that you can just use rather than just guessing on your fingers. Now, if you set it with a ruler, you set it right, and then you put your fingers in there and figure out what it is, you can do that. So you can do that and be fairly close enough. So that can help. But I would measure it the first time, and most manuals are going to tell you in anywhere from 50 to 70 millimeters. There's a big range between different brands and everything, but look in your manual, it'll show you.
It's funny, like a lot of people don't go to the manual first, and there is every piece of information you need. So much in there. Yeah.
Yeah. So you go there and that'll help you through it. Even just the thin, even like with a Honda, you get a tiny little thin owner's book. I don't know what they call it, because it's not like a shop manual. It's just a basic manual. It gives you your maintenance intervals and so forth. And it'll have that chain stuff. It'll have a lot of little tips in there.
Yeah. For sure.
Hey, Jay, do you recommend, because I've moved my axle in a different position depending on my gearing, so it affects how the chain tension is. So I've always taken the shock off and I manually do it like we were talking about, and I figured out my perfect setting for where my rear wheel is going to be positioned.
You're just going way over the top of what most people are going to do.
Is that overkill?
Yeah. I think for most
That's
people,
factory mechanic stuff.
Because I think we're talking about a millimeter, and so most of the ranges are 5 to 7 millimeters. Even Yamaha's have like a 10 millimeter window, which is like 400ths of a thousand, almost a half an inch. So I think it's a small distance that what you're talking about, but it doesn't hurt. And if you get exact, I think that's good.
Well, because I noticed on my previous KX450, I was running it at what I thought was the right size, and I did a suspension service, and I went up there. I found out that my chain was really tight where I thought it was in this right position. I was putting load on the suspension and wearing my chains out.
And if you have too tight a chain, it will wear out your countershaft bearing. That's a big thing that's scary. Is it can actually, if it's way too tight, it can break that bearing, sprocket, front sprocket, all kinds of dangerous things there. And then when they break, it can be really catastrophic and could be cost you a
lot of people don't realize how important that really is to be adjusted. You need to do it every time.
You need to be checking, and that's why I say find that spec in your book, and then you'll know where it's at. If you want to just have a quick finger or cut a bolt, or Works Connection has those pieces, you'll be in good shape.
There we go.
All right.
Stuart R., my question for the podcast is, I'm a 53-year-old rider that's an intermediate, and I'm finding myself at times, my hands are getting numb and falling asleep, and I feel a lot of vibration. What can I do? Another question is, I feel that I get tired a lot quicker, get fatigued. Scott was just talking to me about this. Fatigued after an hour or so. How can I stay focused and not get tired so quickly?
I'm cramping up right now as we're talking because I'm on the road today.
So the biggest key is you just got to start riding more. And it's best to do it on a track that you're good and comfortable with. So the more you can ride, like when I go to Glen Helen, say, and you can start riding regularly and feeling more comfortable, the easiest thing to do is have a watch on your handlebars so that you can look down and say, I'm at 10 minutes. And then I go, and before you head out, you tell yourself a goal. I'm going to make it to 12 or 15 or whatever it is. And for me, most of the time when I look down, my first time is usually over 35 to 40. So then I know that I'm getting towards the end there. And so that helps a ton. So I think having that, the watch on your bars will help you be able to, get another 5 minutes, another 2 laps or whatever you're going to tell yourself when you see it. as far as the hands going numb, there's lots of different things. It depends on the bike. Most of the Japanese bikes don't have a lot of vibration. 4 strokes, I'm talking about. 2 strokes, if he's on a YZ250, there's nothing you can do. Like, it's just going to vibrate, right? Like, you just got to get used to it. I was thinking about it the other day, how grateful I am that we're not still riding 2 strokes at the track.
Yeah. You know what? I remember Ricky Johnson riding the 4-stroke nationals on a ProTech 600.
Wow.
And I remember him saying that 4 strokes were substantially better than 2 strokes way back then.
And at that time, you're like, no way.
And when he told me eventually, I don't know if you ever remember this, he said eventually we will be riding 4 strokes. And I thought to myself at that point, I will quit riding if I have to ride a 4-stroke. And now I don't want to go back to a 2-stroke.
And I kind of feel that way. And I will say the caveat to that is my trail riding in the 300 is a little different. But as far as the track, I don't know that I could go back now and ever be at all anywhere close to the same speed or comfort on the track as I am on a
the flow of the bike. It's easier to kind of flow on it.
Right. So if he's getting numb, and Fast Company makes some bar inserts to help deaden some of the sound, the vibration in there. There's some different things you can do, but for the most part, it's that you want to make sure that your bars, that you're not running a real rigid bar setup. We run the ODI, the podium flight bars that are open. That style bar can be good with less vibration. So you just got to ride more. And
let's not forget, and I don't want to give doctor advice, but lots of hydration and electrolytes help a lot. All of that stuff.
We're the epitome of health, me and you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or they're holding on too tight too.
Holding on too tight.
And that's where arm pump comes in. I don't ever get arm pump, right? The only time I will is if I was to show up, especially at a motocross track, if I showed up someplace where I'm not that comfortable, that's where I would feel like, oh crap, I'm grabbing. Yeah. That's where I would
body position, leaning too far back, putting too much pressure.
I've been fortunate. Things. I've never had arm pump. Yeah. Like I just don't get it.
That's cool.
I never go fast enough.
All right, what do we got next?
Okay, put on your seatbelt. This could be a longer one.
This is a long one, yeah.
Okay, Jaden asks, I have a KX85 big wheel with a 13-tooth front sprocket and a 54-tooth rear sprocket. The previous owner rode track, so I understand this would help with a lot of track, but I don't always ride tracks. I ride a lot of fire roads and a bit of trails and gears, and the power band doesn't last long enough. Okay, he's got a little problem. I don't like to short shift my gears. I was thinking about getting a 14-tooth front, 50 rear, but I was wondering what the stock sprocket size is and what would you recommend? My aim is to have a gear longer so I can ride the power band. He said band.
Just band.
When I hit the band in second gear, I have to switch gears straight away because of the bike is screaming. Would getting a bigger front and a smaller rear sprocket help with this? Thank you.
And is there another gearing question after that one?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do this one first, and then so gearing questions. We get a decent amount of questions on this, and the first thing I would tell you to do is you just simply go to Rocky Mountain and type in your bike, and you can see what your stock gearing is. That's the first thing. So see where you're at, and if it's a used bike, you might not even have close to the right gearing. So see where it's at, and you can also Google, and I'm sure we probably have a link, but there's plenty of gear ratio charts, so you can check out ratios. So to answer his question, yes, he was on the right track of what he wanted to accomplish. I call it more top end speed down the road, right? He wanted to go with a bigger front and a smaller rear, and he's going to get way more top end and a little bit more time in between gears, right? To carry it out. Now it's a KX85, right? So it's going to be quick shifting kind of no matter what. Okay. Because that type of bike, it's going to be a short shifter to a certain extent. You can't just, it's not like a KTM 450 where you can hold it in there for a while before you shift and let it scream out like with our modern 4-strokes. So, but that would help. So if you're looking to get more top end and that's what you would do. And most bikes, it's usually 1 or 2 teeth on the rear sprocket is usually all you need to do. A front sprocket is like 3.5 teeth. A front sprocket's a significant change. And usually you don't do that stuff. Maybe for like when you're doing a drastic thing, like going to Supermoto or something from Moto, where it's a big difference in the type of riding. But with dirt bikes, it's usually 1 tooth, 2 teeth on the rear. The bike behind you, comes with a 47-tooth rear sprocket. We put a 49. That's like what's on yours, Donnie. Your XCF. We put a 49, so it's 2 teeth bigger, so it's actually a little slower than what this guy was describing. So that allows us to be able to carry second and third more, stay right in there, and our first gear is still good and strong. So and feel like we still have a good enough 6th gear when we go to to connect trail.
Right on.
What's the other part of that one? Yeah, there's another.
Tom S., you mentioned riding a larger rear sprocket on your bike. I have a 24 KTM 350 XCF and wanted to know the benefits you'd see in adding a larger sprocket to my bike. Also, what are the negatives to go along with that change? Thanks, Jay. Love episode 12.
Man, that's awesome. So I just answered it, right? Because that's the bike. He has the same bike as behind us. And we did go up 2 teeth. And what that allows us is, more grunt and power in between gears. And to me, it was just a kind of a no-brainer. And it was we weren't into the meat of the power very much with the 47 on there. And so I don't see there's really much of a downside other than you have to switch your chain. Yeah. The stock chain is not going to be long enough, I don't think, to make it. Yeah. I didn't try it.
You ride it till you wear the chain out, then you can change everything.
So that's the advantage and on some bikes, they like to do, and a lot of people give MXA a hard time because they always say, go up 1 tooth, that's a common thing, but it does help a lot of bikes. And it's in the days of 125s. And
what do you suppose, you're doing it, we're doing it. I think we change gearing on every bike. Why does like the XCF come with that gearing? What are they trying to achieve?
Yeah, I don't know what they were on that one. I think they're kind of a bit off.
Missed the boat a little bit,
but not drastic. I guess there's some bikes that are worse. I think. To me, it seems like almost just because it's not really. It's like more of a full desert gearing,
right?
Not really considered for
less
trail.
Single track trail stuff.
Well, I think KTM also does that gearing for their sound regulations in Europe. So they have to meet the right sound at a certain gear and certain speed.
I wasn't sure if that was just the EXCs or if the XCFs.
It might be, but I know there's even in Europe there's a sound requirement
for sure.
Motocross in 25. That's why the KX450 came so plugged out in 24.
Exactly.
This next question is definitely for Scott. Him and this guy have a lot in common. They don't like spending any shekels whatsoever.
Okay, nice. Kelly G, and he wanted to point out it's a he, not a she. He hates to buy bars, chains, handguards for his new Japanese bike right after spending $12,000. I switched to the KTM to save me $300. So my question is, why do I have to buy start-stop map buttons for my 24 KTM with 11 hours on it? I bought 2 setups for both my 24 problem KTMs. Cost over $200. Who could warranty this? Love your show.
Yeah, I don't know you're going to get a warranty on that. That's going to be a tough one. But they do. The problem is, I think this bike got developed, and as Donnie said, everything's made on a Friday now. Unfortunately, that's a little piece there. The engine's good. We're seeing that. Electronics all seem pretty good. But the switch itself is kind of silly, and it does fill up with water real easy, and I think it corrodes away, and it goes away pretty quick. So we've been switching to the Hilo switches, and I like having a switch on each side of the bar. I don't like the one where it's just right there. And the stock switch on the new generation KTM, it's kind of weird to get a firm push on, especially the kill part. So I don't really like that too much on the same side. So I like to have them on the opposite sides. And so he could save money and just get the Hilo one, which I think is like 110 or so bucks.
It's a nice piece too. They do a good job building it.
Yeah, so that one's fine. And that's what we have on a few of our bikes. That one behind you has the Moto Minded, which is a bit heavier duty, and I think it's a little bit more, but that one's a really good one too, and we have it on each side of the bike. And that's
isn't that the Moto Minded kind of more geared toward dual sport?
Right, yeah, off-road stuff. Because it's beefier and bigger. Yeah. But I wouldn't have a problem putting it in a moto bike, but it does look a bit strong, it's more stronger looking, and I like it on that bike over there. So I'm kind of a fan of it as well. So they're kind of bulletproof as far as, I think that's what they call it too.
But as he tried to contact his dealer, it's like you got to go to them and just
right. And some dealers might help you, but I don't think it's an item that warrants them to really get concerned. For them to get their radar on a warranty item, it would have to be like an engine failure where it's $3,000 to $5,000, right. and we're more concerned if this guy's been out a couple $100. To you, it's a lot, but to them, it's like, hey, it's not that big a deal.
Right.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's where we're at.
Now, one question about buttons. Have you ever switched them? I've seen some guys, they put their starter button on the left and the kill button on the right.
Yes. And I don't do that because I don't race. But yes, racer guys will switch the buttons and they'll run the starter button on the left so that when they do their dead engine start, it's better for them.
It's all one deal.
Yeah. So they can pull in the clutch and start. So I think they can, or some of them have you have to have one hand up, right?
Yeah.
Right hand up or whatever. Yeah. So I don't race off-road races like that. Mm-hmm. But they will switch. And Kelly, the guy asking, he races off-road.
I raced that Mexican Encinitas race one time, and you had to start in front of the bike. So
And
you
run
had
over
to hold the bike
walk around.
backwards, and you had to run around and jump on it and go. And it was like, whatever.
And were you kickstarting a bike when you got around?
Kickstarting a bike.
Yes.
It was that KTM photo. I showed you that.
Yes,
KTM.
yeah.
That deal. So, all right, Tom H. Hi, I just purchased a FMF fatty pipe for my YZ250, but I'm not sure whether I should buy a shorty silencer or the PowerCore 2 silencer, standard length.
Yeah.
What is the difference between the two items in terms of power? Thank you.
Well, typically, the general rule on this is on the 2-strokes on like a 250 for a 125 also. But on 125, you want all the power you can get. But on a 250 or a 300, a lot of times you want that power to be smoother and easier to ride. And that's where the longer silencer is going to be an advantage. That shorty silencer is going to be quick and abrupt, more of a full motocross type power on a track that is more. And if you're a better rider, you're going to probably be happy with a shorter silencer on a motocross track. If you're like myself, maybe not as good a rider, especially on a 2-stroke, you're going to want that longer silencer. Very simple. And we've been playing with that with our 300, the Husky 300 build. That one's got kind of a shorty on there. And now we have one that's about 5 inches longer than that. It's huge, longer than that. And it's so nice. It feels amazing. And that's what I rode the last time up in Utah last week. And made a big difference. And just kind of how smooth. And it's a good power, more grunty, but smooth.
Right on. Why don't we do some products? Because we've gone actually 3/4 way through the show.
3/4. Are we 3/4? Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I like this. Okay. So what I was going to show you first is this right here. You guys know what this is?
It's a...
it's brand new. Dude, it's called the Oinker.
The Oinker.
Oinker. And it simply goes on your can like this. And his first vision, and I don't know him really well, but he's a really good guy into moto. The first version he made went around the outside of a can. And as you can see, there's many different sizes
Different
of cans.
size cans, yeah.
So now he came up with this great idea. I'll just go around this top part, which is the same on basically every can. Now wait till you see this, Donnie. Watch this. See that?
Wow.
2 sprays. So you spray that right over your chain, and this is for a 520 chain. You just go like, and so you're spinning your wheel, and just stays in my van just like that. And we have a bunch of dripping mess over our table here. So it's a really cool product, Oinker, and this latest version I'm pretty stoked with. So
that is very cool.
yeah, our phones go in there. We're
Somebody's calling you.
It's fine, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, Oinker, cool product. And then the only other product I'm going to show real quick is something we're going to test. We're going to test this on this TE300 right here, a little spacer. And you guys have a guess what this is for?
Power valve?
Yeah, power valve. We did them on the Hondas way back when.
Aren't you impressed, man?
Yeah. So some guys put a larger power valve cover to get a little more volume in there.
Yeah.
Well, I guess there's some people making some larger power valve covers for these bikes. I'm like, well, shoot, Kinetic can make this really cheap and sell this for a fraction of the cost. And I got some bolts here, but spec bolt's going to get me the right bolts.
length.
Yeah, so we got a washer on each side, and this is just going to increase that volume.
Are they already selling these?
No, not yet.
Okay.
I just got this the other day, and we haven't even tested it yet. So I'll report back how that goes.
Is
really
this
fun.
3D printed?
No, it's cut on it's aluminum and it's cut on a
I can't see.
water jet.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So they make these spacer plates. If you guys want them for a stroker motor, Kinetic will custom make anything. It's really cool for gasket wise, So they made me these up, and I'm going to test them, and I got one for Jamie to test in theirs.
Very
and
cool.
kind of see what kind of the power is. I think on the trail bike, I think it's going to be a really good power increase down right.
So why will that volume increase the power? Kind of explain that.
Well, I don't totally know. There's little magic fairies in there that additional volume. I guess it'd be like adding another chamber to your pipe.
Okay.
So you got more volume in there, and that's what's helping giving it more little grunt off the bottom.
Nice.
I think it cheats the way the ports affect with the power valve when the scavenging ports go into where the power valve chamber is. So it just changes the way for a split second the way the throttle responds.
Yeah. So we're gonna try it with the more volume. I think I really want to try it at the trail. So I'll get Spencer. So I want to go ride it because it's going to be something that's semi-difficult to tell a huge difference.
Well, if you run a hot lap down there by your hot lap section, you might be able to tell.
Right. Well, the bike's in Utah right now, so I'm
not going to do that then.
Yeah, on our next trip, I'm going to take it up there, and we're going to.
That is such a cool looking bike too.
Yeah, came out running. We shot this with Dirt Bike Magazine. It'll be coming out really soon. Really, really fun looking bike. That's
retro to the 10th.
Yeah, and I painted the frame on that just because San Diego Powder Coating did it.
You had to.
Because that frame, that ugly blue, it's the worst color blue. If it was black, or I'd be happier if it was orange, I guess, and we just left it orange. But
there you go.
That blue it's not workable. So anyway, cool bike, and that's been really fun. That's a bike I'm maybe riding up in Idaho in a couple weeks.
Yeah, Right on.
We'll do a test.
All right, Ricky Z, he's got a little problem. He needs a little information. I recently bought a 2003 YZ250, took it out for a 2-hour ride on the trails, and my bottom end seized, connecting rod and crank. The bike came with a full tank, and I topped it off before I rode. Person I bought it from ran 93 octane, 32-to-1 ratio. I topped it up 1/4 tank with 91, 32-to-1. I was wondering what would be some of the factors into seizing. Thank you for your time.
Okay, so the guy, the first thing I think of is what Donnie's smirking over there for, is the guy that sold it to him just right.
That's right.
Right. He knew, hey, I need to sell this thing. I don't want to do another top end. I don't want to do a bottom end. I'm going to sell this thing now. And he
heard the gremlins.
He guessed just about right, because if it blows up in 15 minutes, then you're going to feel bad. But 2 hours, it's on him.
Right.
And so, unfortunately, now you're buying a 21-year-old two-stroke. Okay. For me, now I have the luxury. I would have just tore it apart straight away, right? And not even risked taking it out.
It's not even luxury. That's actually almost, you have to do it no matter what.
And that's why you have to buy these older bikes like that. You need to buy them cheap enough where you can do that straight away.
Knowing you're going to have to tear it down.
And let's say, well, I'm going to wait 6 months. Well, why wait 6 months? Just do it now, because if you do it right now when you buy it, so that's why a bike like that needs to be under $2,000, because you're going to put $1,000 worth of parts into it to get it up to that range. And so I told him, hey, he didn't do anything wrong with his mix. He's worried about this and that. I go, I don't think you did anything wrong. That all sounds fine.
He didn't do anything wrong.
He didn't do anything other than maybe trusting that the guy told him it was going to last a long time.
But buying a 21-year-old bike is
21-year-old bike.
Yeah.
Hey, it sounded like it was the stock crank. So, they're all lucky that it went that far. So,
did he get the 5.5 warranty? The 5 minutes or 5 miles, whatever comes first?
I thought it's bumper to curb. As soon as your bumper hits the curb, the warranty's over.
So unfortunately, he learned the hard way that, hey, that's what happens. But
that's sad.
It doesn't sound like it did a lot of damage to anything else. I think his cylinder might have got scratched where, if you lose a bottom end, the big worry you have is that if it breaks, you can damage your cylinder. And getting a cylinder fix can be anywhere from, $250 to $350 to get it fixed, like from Millennium. Do a good job. So it's kind of expensive to get that fixed. You don't want to have to do that. And it takes a month, 3 or 4 weeks to get that all done. You're shipping it back and forth. So that's why it behooves you to nip it in the bud and just replace it. If you don't know how old that crank is, just change it.
Have you ever watched any of those cop shows and the criminal always says, I'm going to tell you the truth? Whenever they say I'm going to tell you the truth, they're lying, right?
You can trust me.
You can trust me. So it's just like, this bike has never been raced, right? Vet owned, never raced. It's like, well, unfortunately, no matter what, when a bike is that vintage, you have to just think, I'm going to have to tear it apart straight away.
And that's why many times, because I get a lot of guys, we do a really good video on buying used bikes. And so a lot of guys will send me their Facebook links, marketplace ads.
I think that was our very first video ever.
One of those, yeah.
We did like how to buy a bike like 15 years ago.
Yeah. So when people, they'll send me an ad, like say they're in Michigan. There's a guy that's been sending me a couple ads, and I go, no. And why I say no, or it needs to be $1,000 less. And then maybe, and then, but he sent me a really good one this morning. I was like, that looks good.
Yeah.
Like, I think if you can get them down to 3,500, that looks like a good, and guys like at 38. So it's not too far off. The competition on used bikes out here is a lot tougher.
Stiff.
So you can so bikes out here sell for a lot less because there's more competition. So anyway, that's something you're looking at. So you don't want to spend too much on these older bikes. I say 2-stroke, 4-stroke. You're on, if you're looking at, 10 to 20-year-old 4-strokes, you just be careful.
It's not if, it's when.
When. And the problem is on a 4-stroke, especially, if you lose, let's say you have a 2015, that's a 10-year-old CRF, whatever, or any bike, right? If you were to lose a crank in one of those or anything, a valve, you're just going to be parting the bike out.
Bike's over.
Because it's going to cost you anywhere from whoever's doing the work, but $2,000 to $4,000 to fix that thing. And by the time you do that, bike's not worth it. You can part it out, maybe get $1,500 to $2,000 or whatever it is, and put that towards a new bike. So you have to be really careful weighing out those values.
Yeah. How long is the fuse on that time bomb?
Right.
Now, do you recommend rebuilding crank, buying a new one or an aftermarket one? What is the best plan of attack cost-wise?
Good question. So we like to use the Pro X rod. It's a Japanese rod, this OEM quality. So we like to rebuild those. And there's getting to be a lot less crank rebuilders, unfortunately. And I think Millennium still does them. And then out west here, we have Andrew Langston's in Southern California. And so a lot of shops throughout the country, if you ask your shop, they'll know a crank rebuilder. You can give him your crank, he'll rebuild it. You give him the Pro X rod kit. That's the way I like to do it myself, if you can. If the crank halves are still good, that's the best way to do it. And it's like OEM quality, and it saves you a bunch of money.
Yeah, and it is a good rod.
Okay.
All right. Hey, Jay, looking to get a thread chaser for the top of my subframe bolt threads on my 22 KTM 450 SXF. It's an M820. Is there any specifics to know when I'm getting the metric M8 chaser? Thanks.
Okay, so first of all, there's no on steel like this. This isn't a KTM frame. So you just get a tap, 8mm tap, and you can tap and clean up those threads. Now, in this case, just the front part of his threads were messed up. He sent me a photo. So what I actually did is I found him the next longer bolt, which I actually went out and measured, found him the bolt. We got him a part number. He was able to order from KTM with the same style bolt. Just run a longer bolt that goes all the way through now. And he's problem solved. Yeah. So he didn't have to retap anything. But he didn't
you got to be careful chasing threads too, because you are loosening those threads.
Right.
Every time you're running a new cutter through there.
And you want to really make sure that it's lined up. A lot of times, if you have the room, it's best to do it from the other side.
Yep.
Come in from the other side.
Sure.
And then it's fully lined up and have grease on there and oil and so forth. So
now if you blew out the threads completely, do you recommend a helicoil, a time cert?
Time cert. That's all we use.
We are time certers. That's all. That's
it. And anybody that's watched this show has gotten sick of me saying the word, but
time cert.
Time cert is way better quality than a helicoil. I'd prefer not to ever see helicoils. And there's some of the downsides of the helicoil is they have to drill a much bigger hole, and then once it's out there and they're not as strong, you'll end up, especially like a subframe that you're taking off.
Weak.
Yeah. You're going to take it off a few times. It's going to come out, bolts, drain bolts in engines, for sure, time cert.
Okay. Hey, this is the last question, man.
Yes, it is.
Wow. Scott did the first and he's doing the last question.
All right.
We kind of semi-covered this a little bit in another one. Jaden asks, he wants to know which kind of mixture he wants on his KX85. He's been using 32 to 1, but oil leaks out of his silencer a lot. I was told I might need to be packing my silencer. I have ordered a new packing as the old one is really bad, but I was just wondering what mixture should I use? Thanks.
Okay, so a couple things. First of all, and I even posted one this week, is that, especially with these smaller bikes, is that some drip at your silencer is just going to be totally normal. Unless, the only guys that don't get drip on their two-stroke, we can remember back we go to Supercrosses or Nationals, the only guys that don't get drip are guys that are riding wide open.
Wide open.
And you could put your finger in the silencer when it's cold, obviously. You put it in there and you see what color it comes out. If you want it to be like this brown, right? Not black. And when it comes out black, the guy's not on the pipe as hard and on there. Now, the downside so guys will want to chase, and I'm going to run 50 to 1 or 60 to 1, and they're 85 to do that. The problem now is they're not getting enough lubrication on those, that lower rod bearing and those main bearings. They're not getting enough lubrication.
Well, what else happens when you run something leaner?
Right.
It gets hotter.
Yeah. So the answer is not that. The answer is you can jet it a little. So like I said, you can use that PC jetting page to get you in the realm of jetting. Now, if the kid is on an 85 and he's slower, he's not riding at the racer kid's pace, you can back off that jetting and go a little bit leaner on the jetting, but keep your oil mix the same. You need that lubrication. So you can back off and maybe go one clip on the needle to lean it out a little bit. And that will give you a little bit cleaner, less residue. But our trail bikes, like that bike, it'll get a little bit of a drip. I think the last trip was just minimal, but a tiny bit. And so it's kind of, that's going to be a normal thing on most guys that are trail riding especially, or riding slower motocross. If you're riding wide open motocross, you're a faster guy, then you should have really nothing there. And I do agree that changing the silencer is the silencer packing is great, because with that residue there, it's filling up that silencer packing and it's no good. So it's time to kick that out. So as far as mixtures though, I do say 32 to 1, even 20 to 1 on 85s and smaller 65s, 50s, 20 to 1. They need that much lubrication. And then 32 to 1 on the 125s, 40 to 1 on 250s and 300s.
Okay, I got a jetting question then.
Yeah.
20 to 1 technically is leaner jetting than it is 40 to 1. It's more oil lubrication, but the jetting, you're getting less fuel, so you're actually running. It's actually leaner, correct?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, so how
But it's so small. You know, the carburetor's compensating, and unless you're at that highest level, I don't think you're ever going to notice.
Well, you're talking about two different things. You're talking about lubrication, and you're talking about air fuel mixture.
Right.
How do the newer KTMs get away with really?
And that's they're having some struggles.
50, 60, 70, 80 to 1 or something like that.
They're having some struggles with some of that, you know, because some of these bikes, when we took our oil injector off of this bike, this one in the photo, we took the oil injector off and are just pre-mixing it at 50 to 1 on that trail bike. But the Klotz R50, 50 to 1.
That stuff smells great too.
Yeah. And so that stuff's really good. So we're running that. As far as, you know, anything else, you know, jetting wise, I think the big key here is to stay close to that PC jetting, and then remember that ratio of oil is important for lubricating your bottom end, and it's important. I mean, don't chase it the other way. Don't be, I'm going to run 60 or 70 to 1 so that I don't have ooze dripping out. If your kid's just a beginner speed cruising around, he's still going to have ooze coming out at 50.
There's nothing wrong with it.
No, just wipe it off.
Just wipe it off.
Can you jet a fuel injection bike?
With mapping, yeah. So that Jamie at Twisted,
Scott was being funny, and then you slapped him down.
Well, I knew the answer. There's going to have to be more electronics involved.
So it's going to be electronics, and we call it jetting, joking around when I need to jet this thing. So Twisted, they are, and he's the one that did the mapping on this. We put this on the dyno, and he actually came up with some different settings. And actually, I'm going to be testing another. I have an extra ECU that he's got for me, and we're going to take it up there and test again another one that he made it a little bit leaner here and richer here. So we're testing that out. And with this new generation bike, the TBI, he can actually change where the power valve, how much it's hitting and when it opens and so forth. Where before you would have to change that with just your spring tension, you know, for the governor. But now he's able to actually change how much it comes on and hits and so forth. So it's pretty good.
All right, man. Well, let's get to
our CDs.
First of all, there was somebody, a smart aleckly, talking about CDs. Who's obviously never watched the show.
No. Kingdom.
Maybe not all the way through. I haven't watched the show.
Kingdom Come. You remember this?
Oh, yeah.
This one, Get It On. That's the big popular song, right?
Yeah.
But the albums are really good. There's our first 3 albums, and that's when I kind of then got on with life.
Hey, have you shot a photo of your CD rack at home?
No.
You need to shoot a photo of
right.
And kind of how can you pull all these out like this?
Yeah, so these first 3 albums are really good. I listened to all 3 of these over the last day and a half when I was driving around. And this so this was like 88, 89, 91, the best years of our lives, right?
For sure.
Okay. Best years of your life?
They're getting close, yeah.
Okay.
No.
What was it? Best Buy announced they're no longer going to sell CDs?
When?
Recently, yeah.
Wow.
I think it was Best Buy, one of those places that said they're going to take out their CD racks and no longer sell music under CDs.
I think they've been coming back. So I see a lot of places coming back with them.
Yeah.
I really like the places like in Ventura. There was this really nice Salzers that had used CDs. You'd get a lot of used ones. And a lot of my ones are from there, so you'd get them. But really good, if you're going to, so nowadays, I don't anticipate anybody going out and rushing to buy the Kingdom Come CD. But if you're going to check it out on streaming, Kingdom Come, go to the first 3 albums or so, really good. Even I listened to the last, they made stuff up until like 13 and sounds really good. Just unfortunately, I've talked about this with Donnie, is music loses its umph when it's not being played on MTV. It's not played on the radio. So, and there's no buzz around it. Your friends aren't playing it. You're not hearing it in the parking lot before school, whatever. It loses its buzz, right? It's umph to impact you. So, but I think that new music I heard, pretty dang good, just as good as this. Really good. Kind of just got a real clean rock sound that's really easy to follow along. The lyrics are very easy to understand and listen to. So I just love it.
Yeah.
Good stuff. So
what about Kingdom Come. Of your readers that blew his bike up to Kingdom Come?
Yes, that happens. Blew it to Kingdom Come.
That does.
The big knock on Kingdom Come, when they came out, the big knock was they sounded too much like Led Zeppelin. Okay.
We were just talking about this.
That was the big knock on them. And they kind of, I think, didn't get the notoriety that they should have because they were looked at as this Led Zeppelin copy. But to me, I like Zeppelin, don't get me wrong. But to me, this hits me better because this is more my genre and age group. And to me, I like this even better than, now there's like 5 top Zeppelin songs that I'd probably say no.
You just can't. Yeah.
Okay, because they're just classics, right?
Right.
But for the most part, there's not a lot of Zeppelin albums that I can just listen to straight through and go, every song's awesome, right?
Right.
Not as much because they get out there a little bit too out there.
What they say about you guys talking too much?
Yeah. We're
No,
important
this
stuff.
is our CD
I'm
range
just
right here.
kidding.
There's another band that we've talked about, some fabulous guys that I just don't feel like hold for me today.
Yeah.
Like this.
Yes.
I just don't.
It happens. So
It happens, right?
all right. So check them out if you're streaming on Spotify. They're there, and you can go to their discography and see the whole list. Really cool deal.
Can I bring in my
show.
70s and 80s punk rock next time?
No.
No?
No.
We only do rock.
It's a rock show.
It's punk rock.
No.
Did you hear what we just said?
No.
There's nothing that pre or post the rock word.
You're telling me the Ramones are not rock and roll?
Not to me. Okay. Call it what you want. Okay? So here we are, Tesla, Def Leppard.
If Scott had hair, he would still be running a mohawk.
I probably would, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I lost
Are you
it.
bummed that you can't run that Mohawk?
Yeah, I'm really
You should get a
bummed.
mohawk wig.
Well, we used to have Spike Racing,
Yes.
and I can't even put a sticker on my bike because now I'm like Mohawk Racing or Skin Racing. It just doesn't work. I'd have a
It's really-
reverse faux hawk. I'd have two sides.
It's
and that's
really
it.
more like old man racing.
Yeah.
How long is our show?
Well, we're at an hour right now.
Dang it. I was hoping to be at 45. I mean,
Oh,
there was
45.
another comment. People were like, it's too long.
This is what I've been saying, and then you yelled at me for saying this.
All right. Well, I thought we did good with the questions. I think Scott slowed us down.
Scott did slow us down.
Sorry.
All right,
But I think did he add some?
No, he's good.
Well, thank you.
Oh, did he add to the show? Yeah, he did a great
all
job.
right.
I'm glad to have him here.
Okay. Good.
I'll say this about Scott. First of all, he's one of the best writers I've ever seen. Like
Yeah.
he wrote for Dirt Rider forever, and for real, one of the best photographers I've ever seen.
Yep.
He was amazing.
Well, thank you.
Even though
sorry.
he's squandering his talents now, but that's another story.
I'm retired.
Retired. All right. So check out Dirt Bike.
Retired
Test.
from shooting pictures. I still bring it out. Sometimes I'll break out my camera.
Yeah,
Yeah. We'll have to do that.
yeah, for sure.
All right. So check out Dirt Bike Test. All right, Donnie, anything else? Oh, you have a question.
I've got a question for you.
Good.
So I wanted to it's kind of like a long question a little bit. It's like, how did you feel about Spencer when he started riding? Like, because there's a lot of dads, right, that are out there and they're getting their kids started riding. And what kind of steps did you make sure you went through that he was safe when he started riding? And how did that affect you? Like emotionally, like watching your son ride and the safety aspect.
Well, I guess, first of all, I knew right away, even before he was born, for instance, that I didn't want, because I had two girls first, and then I knew I didn't want, and I've been around so much of the industry, seen so many kids, men, myself, all get hurt, right? So I knew enough to know that I didn't want him to be fast. Jody always has this fun saying. He always says, hey, kid, parents will come to him and ask for advice on their racer kid. He goes, best thing you can hope for is that he stays novice, because then he'll enjoy riding his whole life.
Yeah.
Okay. He gets fast. There's a lot of pressure, and he wants to be pro. And then once he becomes pro, he'll never be able to keep on riding because he's getting beat by the next generation of guys who just come out and he can't be happy. So I knew right away when he was young that we weren't going to probably chase the racing dream and just have fun riding. So at that point, we stuck to play bikes all through until he was, 10, 11 years old. When he was 10, 11 is when we really maybe got more involved on a 65 and into an 85 and so forth, and kept it pretty fun and basic. Didn't go after the races. I guess that's the big thing.
And still, you guys trail rode a lot together, because I remember we did that story on that really rad, like
CR 80, 100.
100.
We made a trail version.
trail version. It was rad. We did a video and stuff on that thing.
He would have been like 11, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
So that was like
We did that
12
out
years
at,
ago.
one of our
In Nuevo.
Yeah, Nuevo.
Yeah, way up in the mountains.
Yep.
We went up there. I remember that was a really cool little bike.
Yeah.
What is your advice for parents that want that racer kid, but their kid just wants to have fun and not push them? There's an opposite to that as well.
Yeah, so if they want to be a racer kid, they should be listening to Kiefer. They're probably not listening to this.
No, but their kid doesn't want to be a racer, but the dad wants
him to be a racer. Man, he's got to let go. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like saying, I want my kid to be, the next quarterback of the Patriots or whatever, right? Like, you can only want what your kid, wants. And, if you get to a kid, and nowadays it's getting harder and harder for kids to even want to do anything outside, period, right? So if you find something that they want to do, and it turns out he wants to play soccer, then support him in that, and you'll be able to ride dirt bikes later.
I knew one of the most talented kids, I'm not going to say his name, And his dad pushed him. And this kid had amazing talent, but he just did not want to ride. I mean, his dad would send him off after he turned 16, 17 to go to the track. He'd go to the track, or not go to the track. He'd go playing around with his kids. He would throw mud on his bike, come home and say, "How'd you do?" "Oh, I fell over. I didn't have a good day." It was that bad. His dad would push him to force him to go to the track, and he did not want to ride.
And to me, that's just common sense that goes without saying that we wouldn't do that. And so, but I don't know why somebody would want it that bad for their kid. It just seems hard to me. So,
And look at now, Spencer's sincerely a really good off-road rider.
right.
I mean, he's good on the track too,
Right.
but he really has a lot of trail sense and a lot of that stuff. It's really fun to ride.
It's kind of made things bad for me in a way because now I don't have to.
You're totally lazy.
Yeah, and so when I don't ride trail rides with him, it sucks because I don't know where to go and I have to get out my Onyx and stuff. So with him, it's a lot easier to have the trail guide.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he's willing to help us get
Well, and look what else it's done for you, not pushing him in the racer aspect, is that you guys have ridden a lot together in the last 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
A lot.
Yeah.
So, all right, that is it, man.
All right, cool show. Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Donnie.
Welcome. Thanks.
Thanks, Spencer. All right, we'll see you guys next time. Like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you.
See ya.
We work with some great companies, and here's a list of those right now. Dunlop Motorcycle Tires, Wiseco Piston, Vinco Air Shocks and Dirt Bike Parts, FMF Exhaust, Decal Works Graphics, Pro X Racing Parts, Recluse Clutch Revolution, Motion Pro Specialty Motorcycle Tools, Works Connection, Uni Filter, Klotz Oil, Cometic Gasket, MX Plastics, JE Pistons, Cardo Systems, ODI Bars and Grips. And remember, if you shop Rocky Mountain, use our link from our site, Linktree, or link in description of the videos. Thanks for watching and listening. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.